Hey, so if you're anything like me, you love filmmaking and everything about filmmaking, but you don't always love talking about gear. And so I'm gonna be doing something today that's a little bit outside of my kind of element, and I am going to be talking about gear for one specific reason. Now, again, I am a filmmaker. I love making films, and I always want to make content about making like the filmmaking process and me like making films, but I don't really want this channel to be about gear and this camera and this brand better than that brand. It's just stuff that doesn't really interest me. But I am excited to talk about gear today for one specific reason, because the Blackmagic Pyxis finally came, and I'm excited about it. And so I'm doing something a little bit out of the norm for me and talking about gear in this video. Not going to be diving deep about the resolutions and frame rates and all that different stuff, but I kind of had one specific topic that I want to talk about in this video, and that's whether for you Blackmagic users, if you're like me and been using Blackmagic for a while, can the Blackmagic Pyxis replace a Blackmagic URSA? Can you see? There you go. My Blackmagic URSA. So, yeah, if you love filmmaking, hope this channel can be beneficial to you. Again, my name is George. I'm an indie filmmaker. I come from a faith filmmaking background. And so that's what this channel is generally about, is like kind of me, my journey of making films and being a filmmaker, and talking about the filmmaking process, not about gear. But this is kind of special. This is the first camera body I've purchased in about 4 years, and it's a camera for us Blackmagic users, something we've been excited for and waiting for a long time. So it's a little bit monumental. I thought I'd talk about the camera. Again, not actually really about the camera itself, but really against kind of how it stacks up to the URSA. This is the URSA G2. This is my baby. I love this camera. I bought this camera in 2020. Every film, all my largest projects I've shot over the last 4 years, I've shot on this camera. And so I love this camera. And so when the PIXIS was announced, I was excited for it, was looking forward to it. But I always kind of had it in mind this would be kind of like a B cam, or just kind of a complementary camera, a camera that kind of sits between the Pocket, which I have and own a few of those, and then the URSA G2. And the Pockets, again, they're great. You still get this great image that I personally love. I think is the best out of kind of all the prosumer lines out there. At least it's my personal favorite, preference wise. But that the form factor of the Pocket wasn't great. You could definitely make it work, and I had to make it work, again, owning a few of them, but again, wasn't great. And then you have the URSA, this beautiful camera, and again, still amazing. This is the URSA G2, the 4.6K, not the 12K, but it's the URSA that I've owned for 4 years, and you still get that great, awesome, beautiful image out of it. But look, this thing is big, it's bulky, it's heavy, it's a monster, and it's a great camera, especially for on sets and short films and commercials. But was kind of always maybe a little bit big and cumbersome, and not the most effective use for kind of like smaller to middle-sized projects, and could definitely present challenges on certain shoots. And again, loving this camera, I want to try and make it work, but it didn't always work. And so I was like, man, okay, cool. This camera will kind of sit in between and be a perfect intermediary, and can always pair them together when needed. But like for my big film stuff, the URSA will still be there. And I will tell you, after owning it for only about a week, I've been kind of contemplating on whether this camera can just outright replace my URSA, which again hurts me to say, because this is my baby. All of my films I've shot and done, and again, so many milestones have come and been a part of shooting on this camera. So I just want to talk about a few things that I've kind of, just picked up and noticed after about a week of using this camera. Again, I'm not a big gear person, and I don't really enjoy usually these channels, because the channels are like, they'll be like, oh yeah, this camera is the best, you should buy it, and like they say all these things. It's like you've like had the camera for like a week or a day, or you haven't even owned the camera, and you're like making all these like kind of general statements. And I don't want to be that. I'm not trying to do that. So I can't say after a week whether you should sell your URSA or not, to as a replacement for this camera. But just a couple things I wanted to highlight after having this camera for about a week, and some things I've noticed, and some trends that are kind of changing my mind about this camera. Okay, so number one thing is, man, I like the biggest thing for me about this camera that really was kind of surprising or has been eye opening for me is, when they first announced this camera, I was really excited. I have again had Blackmagic for a while, and if you know Blackmagic and use Blackmagic, EF is just kind of like the lens choice you're in, right? I've had EF forever. I started shooting video for the very beginning in like 2011 on Canon, the 70s and 60s and 5D Mark II. So I've been around EF my entire kind of video making journey and career, and I love EF. I transitioned to Sony kind of like 2016 or so maybe, and used a lot of the Sony E-mount lenses, but still kept a lot of my EF lenses, and even like adapted through Metabones onto Sony glass, because autofocus wasn't great back then, so it didn't really matter. It was like, cool, I'll still use my Sony, my Canon EF lenses on my Sony A7S Mark II back then. And so kept that. And then in 2020, 2019, 2020, when I started migrating over to Blackmagic, man, really just embraced the EF line and has been great. And so when they announced these cameras, they announced 3 different lens mounts, and the EF mount, L mount, and the PL mount. And so I wanted to get the camera right away. So I just purchased the EF mount because I was like, man, I want to try and get it right away. And I just knew what I knew. I knew EF, and that seemed sufficient for me. And I heard people talking about L mounts, and I'm not really like following all the game and all these different things forever. And so I didn't really know that much about L mount. I had a friend of mine who raved about them, the L Alliance and these, and I'm like, I really just don't care. And so again, I just ordered what I knew and was hoping that I ordered it right away, hoping I was going to get it right away. And so that didn't happen, right? So they announced this, I think back in April, I think it was. And so it took a while for them to release, but that's fine. It's cool. But yeah, through October, man, I was waiting, and man, really was hoping to get it for certain projects, and I didn't. But seeing in October, people were starting to get these cameras delivered. Their first batch was coming out, but they're all L mount cameras. And I started to see people get the L mount cameras and talk about throwing these little adapters between the body and the lens, and that in between them was the you could do like ND filters. And so again, one of the biggest reasons why I was like, I just don't think the PIXIS could replace the URSA was because one of the things I love most about my URSA is my built-in ND filter. And I'll tell you, once you go with the built-in ND filter, it is so hard to go back. I really detest the screw-on ND filters on the front of lenses. And again, if you're with a team, you have a first or second AC, you can totally throw on a matte box and do that route. And I like using a matte box. I think they're great, but sometimes you can't always do that. Again, some of those smaller to intermediary jobs, having a matte box on the front can be a little bit, again, cumbersome and not efficient. And so having that built-in ND filter on the URSA, man, it's just great. Or even the 6K Pro, man, just great. And so the thing I was really bummed about when they first announced the PIXIS was no built-in ND. And I understood why. I was like, I'm sure they're gonna come out with a PIXIS Pro, and then that'll have the built-in ND. Cool, but man, that was a bummer for me. So again, that being the thought process of it's just not gonna replace the URSA because it just can't for me. But again, seeing those kind of content creators who got the first batch of the L mounts, and they were talking about these adapters, man, really kind of changed my mind. And so again, waited, and man, after watching a few of those guys, just decided, you know what, I'm gonna try something new, which is a little bit, scary for me, all the money I've invested in EF glass. But because I wasn't getting my camera, I said, you know what, screw this, I'm just gonna buy also an L mount. And I also bought, and I want to get this right here, the Photo DOX VisileX ND Throttle Fusion Smart Autofocus 10 Edition lens adapter for Canon EF to L mount. So that's a mouthful, but I'll put the link in the description. But I bought this adapter with it, and it was funny because again, I'd been waiting for so long. The day I decided, screw it, I'm gonna buy my L mount PIXIS with the adapter, that same day they shipped the EF mount, one that I'd purchased 4 or 5 months before, and I was like, of course they did. And so actually for 2 or 3 days, I actually had an L mount and an EF mount. Ended up returning the EF mount and have adopted this L mount. Again, I'm down the line, I might buy some L mount lenses, but really using this ND filter adapter here in between has been kind of great. I've just been using that here a little bit this last week, testing that out, and I've been really happy with the results. As a matter of fact, I almost kind of like it. I don't say more than the built-in ND on the URSA, but there is definitely some advantages. For instance, or for beginners, the ND filter on the URSA goes from clear to 2 stops, 4 stops, and then 8 stops. This guy, again, max goes from 8 stops, and then go down to minimum, and it's clear. So from the maximum there, you can see there's a little ring right here, variable ring here. So at max, it's at ND8, and then obviously minimum, it's clear. And so, and again, on the ND filter on the URSA, you have a little like presets. So every time you click from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, it's going from 2 stops to 4 stops, and so on and so forth. Whereas here you just get the variable ND ring. So you could, like, if you do it smoothly enough, again, you'll notice an exposure change, but it's not like this big filter that's being dropped in front of the sensor, which makes the shot totally unusable. You can slightly adjust your ND there and just get your exposure right, and it doesn't totally throw off your shot. So I actually kind of like that a lot, and even more so. So that's a big plus for, you know, using this adapter with this PIXIS camera. Other thing I thought was just great, and again, this isn't new or like this wasn't like a surprise, but you know, you don't lose any of your I/O, which is just great because the you know, again, going with the pocket, there's not a lot of great I/O on there. You know, the HDMI camera, and they had like the little XLR mini, which is great to kind of port that out to having a full size XLR. But man, you don't have any SDI, you have to run converters and all this stuff, which wasn't great. On the URSA, I mean, you got tons of I/O, right? You have your SDI out, you have your time code, and you even had reference time code. You have SDI out. I'm sorry, you have SDI out, SDI in, and then you also have your reference and your time code. So you do lose one SDI in on this guy, but you get your SDI out, and you still have your reference and your time code in, which is essential for being, again, on short films or commercial sets. You can't lose that. So that's great, not losing that. And then you do have a viewfinder USB-C port on the front, which I'm really excited about for their little, I don't know what they're calling it, but they're like PIXIS proprietary viewfinder that they announced and are shipping for this soon. So I'm excited for that. So you could theoretically then just have that and still have your SDI out still available. And then if you need to be able to put SDI in, you know, you lose that port, but you know, you don't lose a ton of I/O with this camera. Great. You do lose the full size XLR that you lose on the URSA, but you have this little mini guy, and there's lots of adapters for that, the mini to the full size XLR, and that's been great. And so, you know, you can totally survive with that. So those are two things that I thought were great. And the last thing for me that was big, that again I've been kind of changing my mind or just impressing me, I'll just say, with this guy is, they switched over the camera from the pockets, which was necessary because that was just atrocious and really just unacceptable, the battery on the pockets. But you know, loving the V mounts, or you know, on the URSA, you can put on the back whether you want a V mount or gold mount, and that's been great. I've loved that. Again, you're on a larger set, you need to be able to power other things like monitors or you know, transmitters, receivers, follow focus systems. You need to be able to power that. You do that through DTAP. And so, man, I was a little worried about that, and having to switch over to these new Sony BPU batteries, which are great. I bought a couple of these from Sony. They're great. But I did a little digging online and found this guy. So this, I'll put the link also in the description, but it's from this company called Castar. Never heard of them, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. When I found them on Amazon and B&H, totally thought could be a scam, and they looked very scary online, not very reliable. But I did buy this camera, and the reason why I bought it was because on it does have two. Make sure you can see that, but two DTAP ports on there. So this is like a 90. It's like a BP 100 actually. So it's a big fat battery, but does have two DTAP ports on there. And so far for the week I've been using it, has been great. So that's been huge for me, being able to just still power follow focus systems and monitors until they give us the other monitors system is essential. And so that's been great. Again, one of the things I don't like about a lot of these online guys, content guys, is they'll be like, yeah, see, this is great, and it fixes everything. Look, the thing about filmmaking is I want to know reliability. So I don't want to know if after week 1, if it works. I want to know after like 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line, is this thing still reliable, still works? So I can't give you that answer yet. But just the fact that it's out there, it gives me hope. It gives me hope that maybe even some of these other companies will start making more of this stuff, because obviously PIXIS seems like it's gonna be a pretty big player in the game, and so these other companies that make Sony BPU batteries, or hopefully even Sony themselves, being able to release a battery that has these ports on there, gives me hope, because that is huge. Again, not if I have all these accessories and I can't power them, they're not useful. So being able to power these off this battery is huge. I'm gonna keep testing this. I'll let you know if it craps out on me or if it keeps working consistently. I'll let you guys know either way. But yeah, that was also huge. Again, I have a lot of accessories that I use that are very essential for me to being efficient on set. So to lose all those because of this camera would be it's a step forward, and the fact that I got a cool full frame, more riggable body, but it's a step backwards if I can't use this stuff that I've been investing into, and it makes me successful on set. So if I can still do that and keep that alive, that's a win. So all that to say, man, again, it's only been a week, so I'm not going to make these outlandish statements and say this is the best camera on the market and oh my gosh, that solved every problem. I'm not going to do that. I can't stand when people do that. But I will tell you, it has been impressing me a lot, and I mean a lot, over the week that I've had it. I got it day 1, and I got it on a Friday, and then Saturday I was home with the boys, and man, just me and my boys, I just started shooting, right? Because the first thing you could do, I didn't have any shoots lined up, and so I just shot around the house and just got some cool, nothing's rigged up. It's just kind of natural lighting and making stuff work and just seeing how the camera handles that stuff. But okay, cool, that's great. I never really doubted the Blackmagic image quality and that whole pipeline. I knew that was gonna be great, but okay, enjoyed that, and just kind of getting all my other kind of rigging and everything else kind of dialed in. I just earlier today I got to put it on, but I just got the whole a new side plate that's got the rosette attachment, and there's some rigging options on the other side. So man, excited about stuff like that. And just putting it through its kind of very early paces. I have a shoot next week at a concert for it. I'm setting up some interviews and hopefully a short film in the next month to again really put this camera through its paces. So those are videos and content I'm really excited to show you the process of using this camera on. Again, less about the gear, but just in the first week, I will tell you I've been really overly impressed, and it has made me consider selling my URSA, which again feels so icky to say, because I love this camera. But again, I'm not losing anything resolution. I'm not losing anything picture quality. If anything, I'm gaining, having the 6K and open gate and things of that nature, the full frame. So I'm gaining stuff there. And I'm not going to be losing, really variety, which is again important on set. If I can still have my ND, still have all my IO, and still be able to power the things I need to power, and not again become overly cumbersome, that makes this guy a much more realistic option to replace my URSA. Now, again, maybe you have the 12K, maybe that changes some things, again, kind of the options there, but especially the URSA 4.6, the G2 that I own, and if you own that, if you're wondering, maybe I could replace that, maybe. Again, I'm not going to tell you can. I think it's a decision that you got to make for yourself, but I will tell you, when I bought it, I didn't think it would replace my URSA. I'm open to the idea now. But we'd love to hear from you and your thoughts and opinions, or maybe the questions that you have about this camera. If you own a Pocket or an URSA, and you have any questions that you would like me to answer or talk about, please let me know. Maybe leave a comment in the comment section. Again, I doubt I'm going to make a whole lot of videos about the gear part of it. Maybe I'll answer in a community post, or I love to just talk with you in the comment section below. But yeah, if you have a Blackmagic or URSA, or you just bought it and you just kind of going through the paces yourself, I would love to hear from you in the comment section below. Maybe if you're not a Blackmagic user, different user from Canon, Sony, Leica, whatever, read, man, I'd love to connect with you too. If you have any questions, please ask that. There might be one more video I might make. I did shoot a lot of, again, kind of content this first week, and I have a couple stuff lined up this next week. So I might just drop a bunch of footage on the timeline and just kind of talk through my kind of initial process of like the full frame experience. And just, again, kind of using the PIXIS in that regard, coming from, I've never shot on full frame. I never owned full frame. I never owned full frame. And so kind of just like talking about through that process and that change coming from URSA and Blackmagic Super 35 and Micro Four Thirds over to the full frame. I might do a video about that. We'll see. Again, it's still pretty techy for me, but, yeah, I might do that, might not. But if you have any questions about this camera, or again, my experience, or the kind of the transition between Pocket and URSA to this camera, I would love to hear from you in the comment section. And yeah, again, if you love filmmaking, if you are coming from a faith background or not, that's cool too. Want to talk about indie filmmaking? I would love to hear from you in the comment section below. And yeah, I'm excited to really put this camera through its paces. And again, not that it's about the gear, but it's about storytelling and impacting people through your art. But anyways, listen, if you like this video, or again, if you just like faith filmmaking kind of journey, or just indie filmmaking stories, all those things, man, drop a like, subscribe to this channel, share it with a friend, just comment. You know all the things you're supposed to do. I would love to get to know you a little bit. And thanks for watching. And yeah, Blackmagic Pyxis. So glad it's here. See you in the next video. Peace.